Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Irish Wrestling Podcast. My name, as always, is Mark O'Brien. I'm joined today by a columnist, podcaster, writer. Most of you would know him from the Grapsody podcast with Fightful. A lot of you would know him from his writing the Bleacher Report with FanSided DDT. I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Phil Lindsey. Phil, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. Listen, thank you very, very much for joining me on this lovely Thursday evening here in Ireland. I'm sure it's nice and sunny where you are in Chicago. Listen, I just wanted to kind of touch base with you. I've been a follower of your podcast in particular, through Fightful and Grapsody for a long time. I've followed your writing, particularly through COVID. Like a lot of us, when we had a lot more time in our hands, may have done a bit more deep diving around podcasting or around larger issues in wrestling. Particularly kind of a lot of things going on in the world during the COVID times, particularly kind of around representation, things like that. Though I kind of opened my own eyes up to a lot more, and kind of increased my own awareness. So a lot of your own writing, particularly with FanSided DDT, I remember you had an article about Apollo Crews a number of years ago that really kind of opened my eyes at the time, and I thought it was really quite enlightening for somebody who wouldn't have over in Ireland. I'm so far removed from American wrestling. Yeah, listen, I thought I'd reach out to you to see if you'd fancy the conversation. But just first of all, thank you very much for joining us. Listen, for our fans over in this side of the world who might not necessarily be familiar with your own work, be it in writing or in podcasting sphere, give people a bit more background about yourself if possible.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I started at wasn't started at FanSided, but I got a big break at FanSided. I believe that was 2019. It was like, but I wrote some other stuff. I covered women's wrestling a lot in 2018, and I started with FanSided in 2019. I did some writing with Sportskeeda. I had my own column there, and then did podcasts every now and then. It was one of those things where I would get invited to do podcasts here and there, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's cool," but it wasn't like something I was focused on. I was doing mostly writing, and so friend Will Washington hit me up and was like, "We should do a podcast together." And this was after we did a podcast together. I did RBR with him. This was after Revolution. That's right, because it was the exploding barbed wire death match. So it was the post show for Revolution.
Yeah.
We did that, and then we did a review of the first dance, and then Reg did an episode with him. And he was like, "We should do something. The three of us, we should do something together." And I was like, "If it's with the two of you guys, then yeah, I'm in." And that's kind of where Grapsody came from. Bleacher Report came. I want to say that was at the same time I started with Sportskeeda. So I believe I got the offer to do the column at Sportskeeda at the same time as I got the Bleacher Report gig. That was around 2019, 2020.
Amazing. Sorry, yeah, listen, that's very cool to kind of see. Like I did do a bit of background research on yourself before I reached out to you initially. It's funny to see, not giving too much away, hopefully, that you had a finance background as well. And I work in finance, my day job, so it's kind of like, oh, okay. So like I do a bit of wrestling writing. I've suddenly slowly moved into kind of the podcasting space as well. So there's a bit of overlap there as well, which kind of enticed me to kind of reach out to you initially. You kind of touched on there the kind of the origins of Grapsody in particular, particularly when that after that exploding barbed wire death match in an empty arena during COVID, in a strange, eerie setting down in Florida. What's it been like seeing Grapsody in particular, a platform that's very organic that you've been working with Will and Righteous Reg? What's it been like to see that kind of almost explode in popularity, kind of, well, I assume worldwide, because I know a lot of people from this part of the world who listen in anyway. What's it been like to be from a ground up level of something you started with a couple of friends and something the way you described there sounded quite casual to something that's increased in popularity day by day, and now to the point where one of your co-hosts has now gone on to pastures new and doing incredibly exciting things.
Um, I don't know. I still don't know what to make of it sometimes. It's very humbling sometimes because we didn't come into this going like we want to make this like huge podcast. We want to make something that's popular. It was just like, hey, you guys are my friends. I want to make something cool with you guys. And that was kind of it. And so everything that's happened since then has just been kind of like the cherry on top. I don't know. Like every time we go places now and people see us together, they're like, "Hey, Grapsody." I'm just like, okay. It's
Yeah.
still weird for me, man. I don't know what to make of it sometimes. Like even when I'm by myself, I've gone to shows and people are like waving from like all the way across the arena, and I was like, okay. But, I mean, I've said this on a podcast, but I think the wildest time I've seen this, I'm like standing on the floor at WrestleMania, and I'm just like taking in the amount of people who are in this stadium. It's this huge stadium, SoFi Stadium. It was my first WrestleMania, and I'm just like, this is insane. And I caught this guy in the crowd with a MJF scarf, and he had like the whole cosplay thing jumping off. And I was like, hey, that's cool. And he was like, hey, Grapsody. And I was like, what? So yeah, no, I'm still sometimes very surprised by the reception to the podcast. I think it's really cool that people have taken to it. I think that it speaks for the work that we've done to build this thing. I don't want to, of course, come off like, ah, well, we did this hard work, and so, now everybody's coming in to tune in. Um, I don't know. I just think that it's a testament to the community we've built. I've tried my best to communicate as much as possible with our audience, and I think it helps. I think that when I see things like people coming to shows now with signs, it's just like, cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the best part about I think podcasts or particularly kind of YouTube platforms or anything of that nature where it's very genuine and you've got people who are just enjoying each other's company and there's no real like gesticulating, kind of putting himself above parapet or putting on an act as such, where your kind of platform does come across as three guys just almost shooting the shit to an extent. You do take wrestling, obviously we all love wrestling as a very serious. Wrestling isn't a serious thing, but it's something we all take seriously as such. That's my own kind of opinion. Like people are naturally drawn to people who are naturally themselves in a platform like that. So that's why I personally appreciate the pod anyway. But just to follow on to it, what's it been like for yourself and Reg now that seeing your friend Will Washington, he's now moved on, maybe a left-sided kind of move out of nowhere. He's now the wrestling coordinator for All Elite Wrestling. I know there was talk about in the media that he had a separate relationship with Tony, but what was it like for you? Like the three of you have started something together from the ground up, and then suddenly one of you is being you're all being recognized to a degree for the work you put into a platform and the work you've done outside of it. What was that like? I suppose it's quite rewarding feeling in a sense.
Um, I don't know. It's still a lot to process. I kind of figured he was gonna get a big gig somewhere at
Okay.
some point because I mean, really talented guy. He has a lot of connections.
Okay.
Um, but when he talked to us about it, and he first let us know that he was considering the offer, I was just like, nah, you got to do this. You gotta knock this out the park. And so, still very proud of him. I think that he's happy there from what it sounds like. Every time I talk to him about it, we're still all in the same group chat. We still talk all the time. Just saw him in Vegas.
Awesome.
And it seems like he's having a great time. And that's all that, I want
Yeah.
for him. I want him to, go and do things that not just that he's proud of, but just, do things that he enjoys doing. He talked a little bit on a podcast about, getting laid off a little bit before that. And I get it. It's tough. It's tough, in his situation where he has a family and, he has responsibilities. And I think this was kind of killing two birds with one stone thing, where you got a gig, and then you also get like a dream job. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm really happy for him. In terms of like just what it means him being there, it's huge. And I didn't really put it in perspective till I heard Kazim from The Ringer
Yeah.
talking about it. And he was saying how this means a lot for Black podcasters. It means a lot how, now you see that a wrestling company like sees us and they notices our contributions to the wrestling community, so to speak. And so I think that in itself is cool to just see a guy that's been podcasting as long as he has this much reach and he can get that kind of opportunity.
That's brilliant. Like I've no doubt that Grapsody itself, between yourself and Reg, will grow from strength to strength going forward. And I don't see like suddenly it's gonna. I think yeah, you're gonna. This sky's the limit for what you have, and you have an ingrained community as you put it already in terms of people who are following Grapsody and the kind of work you guys are putting out there already. Like, and people will continue to follow you, and I've no doubt you guys will continue to grow, and I'm no doubt that Will be able to help from the inside, maybe giving a scoop here and now and then as well. But listen, that's absolutely brilliant. You kind of touched on representation just there. And I'd mentioned it at the start. First time I kind of really kind of came across your work, you wrote an article about Apollo Crews. I think it was back in 2021.
Mhm.
Um, about the character he suddenly portrayed on an episode of SmackDown. I dug it out recently, before I reached out to you. And it was, I remember reading it at the time, and we're obviously sitting at home and locked down in Ireland. I don't know how strict it was in America, but we couldn't leave the house here. And we obviously had a lot more time in our hands to kind of think things through and just like the rationale behind characters. And you kind of, a lot of the time you can watch WWE and you're like, you kind of take it for what it is, just face value without really understanding kind of a deeper nature behind it, or like the lack of thought maybe behind a flippant character like that, the kind of Nigerian prince character he's playing. Um, how important has it been for you yourself, Reg, to have that kind of voice, not voice of the voices, but kind of a voice whereby you're speaking up and speaking about these issues in a space where it might necessarily have been spoken about as largely as it had been in the past number of years. Like that article you wrote about Apollo Crews a number of years ago really opened my eyes to kind of a lot of larger issues that wouldn't have occurred to me at the time. So thank you for that. First of all, it's kind of as an education piece as much as anything. But like how fulfilling has it been rather than to be in a position whereby you've got a platform now, or people do respect your views, be it on wrestling and then larger life issues like that. How fulfilling has it been for you as a content producer and a writer then?
I don't know. It's been it's come with its it's come with its obstacles and
Yeah,
annoyances, but of course it's come with its like rewarding moments as well.
yeah,
I think that for the longest time, wrestling media and a lot of people that talk about wrestling, it's been so predominantly white for so long. And I think now you're seeing a lot of black podcasters get noticed. You're seeing a lot of black creators get noticed. And I think that's great. I don't think that's just great for me and Reg or Will. I think that's great for,
yeah,
the industry as a whole. Because I do think that we need to see more points of view, more perspective on these things. Because, hey, somebody white might see something like that and go, oh, well, that's not a big deal. And, the
hmm
preface, the Apollo thing was so interesting to me because when he first turned and he first started doing that gimmick, I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like it makes sense. They tied it back to the Roman stuff. And I was like, this makes sense. This makes sense for him as a character. If you go back to stuff on Indies, with Dragon Gate and the Uha Nation stuff, it makes sense. But then when he started doing accent, I was like,
yeah, yeah,
oh.
hmm
Then it went further and further. He started doing the spear. He's got the. It's just like,
yeah,
why are we doing this? So, um, at the time, there were a lot of people. Well, I won't say a lot of people. There were several people that had issue with me saying like, why are they doing this? Like, why can't they just let him be a proud Nigerian man? Why does that make him a heel? Why not make him a babyface? And
yeah,
so, yeah, when the lawsuit that just came out and he was a part of it, I saw a lot of people that were tweeting me in response and was like, hey, I remember the first time I heard about this.
yeah,
And I was just like, yeah, I don't want to be, the I told you so guy, but it just kind of feels like wrestling has been this thing that relies on some tropes for the longest time.
yeah, yeah,
And it's been kind of a place where it's been lucrative to play in the stereotypes for a long time.
yeah,
That, some of that stuff is very dated. Some of that
yeah,
stuff is very outdated.
yeah,
And so, if it's on me to point out some things are like not necessarily bad, but kind of like, hey, how can we do a better job of representing a Nigerian man? Or how can we do a better job of creating something where a lot of other fans feel included?
mm,
Then, I'm going to try and speak up on those things. Because not everybody's going to see it that way, and sometimes people are going to agree with me, sometimes people are going to disagree with me, but that's fine. I don't really get upset with people disagreeing with me,
yeah.
but my opinion is my opinion. At the end of the day, I'm never spitting anything as I think is fact. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, like I think you summed up quite well there in terms of wrestling relying on tropes and stereotypes and kind of lazy creations a lot of the time. And I think you've seen over the last number of years, a lot of the best stuff that I've enjoyed has been stuff that's full of nuance and character development overlapping with several shades of grey. It doesn't have to be lazy like that. You can invest time and thought into somebody. It doesn't have to be such a forced issue. I think
Yeah,
something that's forced down a fan's throat or a contrived idea. So
yeah.
yeah, that's very
I
well.
mean, I think that's part of what makes the Roman stuff work so well. I think the
Yeah,
bloodline stuff works because it's such a different approach to Samoan heritage and
yeah.
family and all these things, and there's nuance to it.
Oh yeah,
And so I just think that people should take the positives from that and use that when when it comes to things like Latino representation or Black representation or whatever it is.
yeah. No, listen, like, I 100% agree, and I think you can apply that to, obviously, to AEW, be it with like the Elite and all their kind of their ongoing overlapping character storylines that have gone on for a number of years. I kind of want to shift it slightly. I'm a big fan of Nick Housen's podcast as well, and I
Hmm.
was listening to you on his podcast recently. Like, I seem to be having a great time. Shoot the shit over there. You're based in Chicago.
Hmm.
And next week you've got the debut of AEW Collision at the United Center. I'm not sure if you're attending yourself, but there's been yourself and Nick seem to be somewhat in the know in that space in the Chicago wrestling scene in terms of what's on the horizon or what various information going on between different camps. I won't ask about that, but in terms of for as somebody based in Chicago, what are your expectations for that debut of AEW Collision next week?
Um, I don't know what to make of it, man. The Saturday wrestling show is such a hard pitch.
Yeah,
Um, I do think that having Punk connected to it can help.
yeah,
Because making that the show to see Punk, it does give people like some type of draw.
yeah,
Um, like I said, Saturday is just such a tough pitch for
yeah,
people, man. Because um, I don't know, man. Saturday wrestling is just tough, and it's not just that. It's Saturday wrestling is tough. There's so much other stuff going on the weekends. You got
yeah,
UFC pay-per-views. You got other wrestling pay-per-views going on the same day. Um, I'm very curious to see how they're gonna make this work long term.
yeah,
But I think the debut could be cool. The main event that they announced last night sounds good.
yeah,
I'm full in on what they're doing with the Bullet Club now.
yeah,
Putting Joe in that match and having him go against Punk, and they've had like a storied rivalry that makes
yeah,
perfect sense. And then having FTR and Punk team up and do the trio stuff, gives people something to be excited about.
yeah,
Um, it's not quite the trios match people want. That's of course the
yeah,
elephant in the room.
yeah, yeah,
But I do think that the fact that they have so much stuff seemingly lined up for Punk right away, that's a good sign.
yeah,
Uh, because if it was just like, hey, this is just a Punk show and he's gonna be here with some other guys that also want to work Saturdays, that's one thing. But if you also have like matchups for him, like it seems like they keep teasing other things. They've teased
yeah,
the Jay White thing. They've teased Joe beforehand. Kent is out
mhm,
there tweeting stuff.
yeah,
And so if they have plans for the first few months, first few weeks of Collision, that seems like a positive thing,
yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, no, listen, options are always good, and I think you hit the nail on the head there in regards to Saturday wrestling. Like Saturday wrestling, a lot of the time, particularly in this part of the world, is very much like independent wrestling night. If you go to something like it's something
Yeah.
you're gonna go, you might turn up drunk, like you might have had a few beers beforehand. You're gonna go, you're gonna enjoy yourself. It's gonna be a Saturday night out as opposed to like going to a TV wrestling show. It's almost like going to the cinema. You're kind of watching something, you're not as part of it as such, if you get me. So it'd be a bit of a harder sell, and that obviously is reflecting the Canadian ticket prices so far for AEW Collision. But that, like, listen, but hopefully that'll be work out well in Chicago. And if you're at the show, I hope you have a brilliant time.
Yeah.
So you
I
touched.
and I will be there, by the
Oh,
way.
amazing, amazing,
Yep.
amazing. And you touched on the other tease trios matches that hopefully is in the pipeline for All In. Is there any plans for yourself and possibly Righteous Reg and the Grapsody Pod, possibly coming to this part of the world to do maybe a live show, be it around Money in the Bank this summer or around All In at the end of the summer? Any chance of you guys coming out this way and doing a live show at all for us?
Uh, I would love to come over.
Okay.
I know Will would be there, of course. He's
Yeah.
working, but I currently don't have plans to go for All
Okay.
In. I currently don't have plans to go for Money in the Bank. I actually need to get my passport renewed, if I
Right.
remember correctly.
Okay.
It's one of those things throughout the pandemic that I don't think I've actually opened my passport and looked at it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it expired. I'm pretty sure I need to get it renewed.
That's
Um,
one of the it's one of the funny things I always found hilarious about America, like the ability to travel all around the country, get on an airplane without a passport. Whereas like because we're in Europe, if you get on a plane, you're leaving the country, so
mhm.
you need a passport to get anywhere. So yeah, it's something you don't appreciate from this part of the world. But listen, if it'd be brilliant if you do come over this way. And just to finally, do you have any plans kind of over the next coming months, be it with your writing with BR, with FanSided DDT, anything with Grapsody, anything in the pipeline fans should keep an eye out for on your end?
Uh, no, I think we've got some guests lined up for Grapsody coming up. We've been doing like revolving guests since Will uh
Yeah,
took the job with AEW. Um, so we've got some guests lined up. I've got some stuff that I would like to do with Grapsody. We don't have any real plans yet.
yeah,
But every time we go out somewhere, I see so many people that are like excited to see us. I'm like, man, we need to like do like a meet and greet or something. We
yeah,
need to do like
yeah,
we've wanted to do a live show for the longest. Um, but it's just getting all of us in the right place, getting the right destination for it. It seems like doing it around a pay-per-view makes sense, but
yeah.
again, still still workshopping ideas for that. But
Amazing.
I'll
Listen,
figure it out.
hopefully, like, be if it does come this part of the world this summer, or comes if I'm ever over in like over for a mania or something in America, if I'm ever so lucky to be over, and it's on a WrestleCon or something, and I'm in town, I'll 100% be there. I love Grassy. I think it's a very enlightening pod as much as anything. Thoroughly enjoy it. So listen, Phil, more than anything, thank you very very much for your time. I really do appreciate this evening.
Yeah, yeah, appreciate you. Um, and like I said, it's still very humbling that people like all the way over in Ireland. Sometimes like there's a guy in Australia that watches every episode, and I'm just like, it's still insane to me. Uh, but I think it's like I don't know if you've seen it, but Steve Harvey did an interview with Shannon Sharp recently, and he was talking about how the difference between a movie star and a television star,
Okay.
and he was saying how Denzel pointed out to him when people would come up to them in person. He was like, just look at the reaction when they come up to me, and look at how they respond to you. He was saying the difference is that when they come see me, you have to pay, you have to go out, and it's like an event to go to the movies.
Yeah.
People invite you into their home. And I thought about that for a long time, and I just think that it's really rewarding to think that people invite us,
Yeah.
into their Saturday every day. I mean, every Saturday, and actually like watch us or listen to us. Like seeing us on people's TVs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's cool, man.
That's
I
really that
really,
is really cool. Listen, I'm thoroughly delighted for you on that front. Like, that's a really cool comparison because I actually thought I was at the For Love of Wrestling event in
hmm
Manchester recently, the likes of FTR and stuff. I'm a big FTR fan. I think I'm wearing their t-shirt now. But it was that kind of sense of like you kind of meet them and you're like like you kind of know them because you're in your home every week. There's a level of familiarity.
yeah,
So listen, that's a perfect comparison. Listen, Phil, once more, so thank you very, very much again for your time. Listen, everybody's watching this, please check out all of Phil's writing be on BR Live or BR Report, Fanside of DDT. Check out his previous work, be it on Diva Dirt, Sportskeeda. Check out all his podcasting with Grapsy and Fightful as well. So listen, Phil, thank you very, very much again. I really do appreciate your time.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you.